get this done by working together as a team.
Jeez, bub. Keep buzzing in my ear.
Hello everyone, thanks so much for joining me here today as we get to talk about my favorite subjects, comic books. My name is Jose. I love comic books, I love talking about them, I love sharing them with you. Feel free to follow me on social media if you would like. Links are in the description below. I've also posted a link to the Marvel fan site that I have plot synopsis and character bios for this issue. So, we are now looking at the Uncanny X-Men 201. This is from 1985, and it is the official first appearance of Cable as a baby. This is one of my favorite issues. This is one of the early issues that I had gotten when I started collecting X-Men during this time. Great cover by Rick Leonardi and inked by Whilce Portacio, or Portacio. I don't know how you would pronounce it, but we've got Storm versus Cyclops for leadership of the X-Men. Cyclops has returned, and he wants to be leader. So, but so does Storm. So this is gonna be a really good issue. Huge favorite of it. So, all right. When the X-Men returned home from Paris, they found a big surprise waiting for them. And so we've got Rogue, Storm, Rachel, Nightcrawler. We got Madeline Pryor. We got Kitty Pryde and Colossus and Wolverine. And here we have Cable, or the future Cable, who was not Cable at this time. But we also have Cyclops looking away. He's not even looking at his baby. And Kitty says, Madeline, you had a baby. Cyclops, you're a father. And, you know, he just doesn't look very happy here. A Stan Lee presentation starring the Uncanny X-Men. Chris Claremont writer, Rick Leonardi penciler, and Whilce Portacio, I don't know. He is inker. He was an inker during this time here. And Tom Rzakowski continues to letter. Glynis Oliver continues to color. And Ascenti and Jim Shooter same editorial here. The hand is miscolored. This hand should be skin toned like Colossus, but for some reason they painted it the same as his sweater. And I'm always surprised that when they release these digital that they don't correct it. So I have a nice copy of this issue. I don't have a mint copy because it's the original one that I had. And I'm not going to buy a new one because this issue, it's just, to me, this issue is just not worth the price that people pay for it. So if I could find a nice copy for about 20-30 bucks, okay. But some people just, I don't know. So Nightcrawler says, truly a chip off the old block. Tell me, is it a boy or a girl? And Storm says, a boy, silly man. And Rogue is like, can't you tell, Nightcrawler? And Wolverine's like, big flaming deal. You seen one brat, you seen them all. And he uses his claw to open up the beer. And here you can see, oh no, he is wearing gloves. My bad. All right. And Cyclops is not with the group. He is standing off. And Colossus says, to think, Wolverine, you also once looked like that. I wonder, comrades, how he will feel growing up with such as we for godparents. And Nightcrawler says, blessed of course, Colossus. The dear lad could do a lot worse in both manners and look. Then take after and then he falls here. Give us a break, fuzzy elf. And he's like, "Oh, Rachel, use your telekinetic powers against me, will you? That means war." And so he tickles her, and she's like, "That's not fair. Oh, please stop, you rotten brute." So, and Colossus says, "Should we interfere?" And Wolverine says, "Raise a big girl, Colossus. She can take care of herself." Again, Cyclops is in the background, brooding. I think Rick Leonardi during this time had just completed the limited series for, oh my gosh, what is her name? Cloak and Dagger. So, alright. And Rogue says, Crawler pulled that stunt on me once. He won't try it again. Kitty sighs here. He's the team leader. He's supposed to set an example. And Maddie says, "Do me a favor, Kitty." "Sure, anything. Hey, just for a minute, okay, while I talk to Storm." And she's like, but, oh golly, oh gosh. "Suppose I drop," he cries. "Madeline, cute kid. This isn't so hard," she says. And Maddie's like, "That's the spirit, Kitty." And Storm says, "You look well, Madeline." "I'm fine, Ororo. Strong as an ox and tough as nails. Heck, I walked away from a crashed and burning 747. I can survive anything," she says. So, nice little vertical panel here. And she continues, "Got to admit, it's certainly nice to look down and see my toes again. I'm glad the X-Men made it home safe. From the radio and TV reports, Paris sounded pretty rough. Is it true, Professor Xavier, that he won't be coming back?" And Storm says, "I fear so. It appears our former archfoe Magneto means to take his place." Magneto, to me, is the correct pronunciation. It's Magnet with an O. Magneto. People that say Magneto would be Magneeto. So, Magneto. And Maddie says, "Goodness." And Storm says, "What is wrong, Madeline? I sense a great rage, barely held in check. Why are you so angry?" And she says, "Do you have any idea what happened here?" And Storm says, "I've been away and out of touch for quite a while. I knew you were pregnant, a little more." And she says, "I was happy as their walk." I like the fact that there's details showing where they are, that there's scenery. So I like that. That's a nice touch. In the beginning, it was like a storybook, complete with the classic ending. They lived happily ever after. Scott came back to the X-Men because he felt he was needed. I followed from our own home in Alaska because I wanted us to be together for the birth of our child. He and the X-Men went off to Asgard to rescue you, and I was left on my own. That was covered in X-Men Annual 9. I have a playlist, several playlists. Feel free to check them out. No problem. I coped. Always have, always will. But then you all returned, materializing in France for heaven's sake. And Kitty phoned. You phoned. Almost everyone called to see how I was, except my husband. Not a word, not a peep. He had more important things in mind. I gave birth to my son on this floor. I was lucky. Almost before I realized I was in labor, I had the baby in my arms. I reached the hospital. Everything was all right. But it could have been different. My boy could have died. I could have died. I understand Scott's not being here, but he should have at least let me know he cared. And Storm says he's a very private man. Such feelings are hard for him to face, much less reveal. But they are there, Madeline. He does love you very much. And she says, "That's what I thought. Now, though, Ororo, more and more I find myself asking for proof." And so now Kitty Pryde gives Rachel the baby, and she asks Kitty if she wants to hear the baby's thoughts, and she links, and they both cry, going, "Oh, that's beautiful," and says, "Ray, you can't hide the truth forever." She is Cyclops and Jean Grey's daughter from another time. And so she says, "I know. I'll tell him real soon, I promise." I never had a brother. In my timeline, the future era I came from, the world was harsh and cruel, and it killed mutants. The world, this timeline, your future, baby boy, is going to be different. I'll protect you. Whatever it takes, I'll find a way to save you. And so outside, still brooding, I'm a father. I have a son. Why aren't you here, Professor, to share that joy with me? He doesn't look very joyed. Careful, Cyclops. Remember what he taught you. Can't open my eyes in the slightest. So every issue is somebody's first. So we got to reveal what their powers are. There. That's safely done. Where are you, Professor Xavier? What happened in Paris between you and Magneto? Can we trust him? Is he telling the truth? So now we are with the Shi'ar, and says here, far away, a great renegade starship flees for her life. And so here we have Binary. Binary is Carol Danvers, who is now Captain Marvel, and the Starjammers are inside. And so Carol Danvers is going in, and Chad says, welcome, Binary. How went your reconnaissance? And she says, lousy, Chad. I covered the hull from stern to stern, Corsair. I'm sorry, but everything I've seen only bears out Waldo's assessment. We're not just crippled. We're lucky we're still whole. And so Waldo says vessel integrity 43%. And gives more bad news, and Corsair says, enough, Waldo, I get the picture. And here we have Lilandra and Charles Xavier. And so Charles says, this is my fault if you hadn't risked everything to save me. And Chad says, you, friend Charles Xavier, would now be history. I, for one, much prefer you the hale and hearty way you are. And then this thing says something else. If anyone is to blame, Charles, it is I. And Hepzibah says, that's the truth, Featherbrain. And Corsair says, give it a rest. What's done is done. This scrapping amongst ourselves isn't getting us anywhere. And Waldo says, nor, boss, will the engines for much longer if some very heavy-duty repairs aren't undertaken. And so Corsair says, the ultra-light superstar drive is totaled. So we haven't a prayer of reaching Earth on our own. Now, it does look here that totaled is different. I wonder if it was misspelled. Somebody caught it at the end in editorial, whited it out, and just respelled it, because it doesn't look like Orzechowski's lettering. If you look at Orzechowski's lettering, the T does, but then everything else does not. And so he says a bunch of stuff, but he says, I'm sorry, Charles, there's no way we can take you home. Not now, and maybe not ever. So Xavier is stuck with the Starjammers for now. Xavier says outer space is majestic. Lilandra tells him that basically she spent so much time out there that that's all she knows. So do most of the Starjammers. So they're in a different galaxy, and he can't even see the Milky Way. And so he wonders about the New Mutants and the X-Men and what will become of them. He wonders if he made a mistake about Magneto, and he says he was a good man. I believe he can be again. And so he says if he had the right to gamble with the lives and future of his children, and Lilandra basically says what's done is done. It can't be changed, and there's what ifs don't work. And so the two of them kiss because they're in love. They've been in love. And I think that's the last we see of Xavier in the X-Men until the end of Jim Lee's run on Uncanny X-Men, although he will appear in the New Mutants. So we have Cannonball here, and the computer goes mad, or computer crashes, and he's like, there was a term paper in there, and look at this. Not bad. I think this is a um apple, and so he's like he lost his term paper, and so outside the X-Men are playing baseball. Chris Claremont always had the X-Men playing baseball. And so we got Rogue, who can't touch skin, but apparently has no problem being um, in her bathing suit here. So, and Nightcrawler is always in uniform. And so, um, in here, there was just banter in there, and Nightcrawler says, Wolverine, I'm worried about Scott and Madeline and Rachel. There's trouble ahead, my friend. What should we do? And Wolverine says we should leave it alone. And Nightcrawler says, this is certain to affect Cyclops' ability to lead the team. And Wolverine says he's going to, as he crushes the beer can. And so Katie sends Colossus a fastball. He turns into Colossus and hits it really hard. And Rogue goes and gets it. And here's Air Force One. Ronald Reagan is in there. Rogue catches it, gives him a kiss, and Ronald Reagan says, "We better keep this between ourselves." So Kitty comes in. Sam tells her what happened. He's like, she'll fix it. She's a computer whiz, and so she's gonna go take a shower. Storm tells her eye glasses appointment or eye doctor appointment has been made. She doesn't wear glasses, but Storm says you need them. Hey, you can wear contacts. They had contacts back then. And so she says take the shower in the gym, and she hears yelling coming from the attic, and Storm says, I loaned the loft to Scott and Madeline, and they of course are fighting, and Kitty says, a bad one. Aw, crumbs. So, Cyclops says he has to stay and lead the team. Maddie asks him why. He says he's needed. Professor X is gone. Magneto promised to take good care of the mutants. I just bet he will. She says, why don't you believe him? And he says, not for an instant. For all we know, he may have murdered Professor X himself. He did not. But. And so she says, what about me? I have a life of my own, a career. Do you expect me to chuck it? And he's like, I thought the baby changed all that. He says, it's our child, chum, our responsibility. I have skills. I can earn a living. Can you say the same? And he says, I have a responsibility to the X-Men, Madeline. There's no one else to do the job. No, not Ororo. And Cyclops says, Storm has no powers. She'd be a liability in a combat situation. And she's like, listen to yourself, Scott. Are you saying you and you alone are absolutely essential to the X-Men's survival? Or are you afraid that they really can't get along without you? You know, they have been practically without Cyclops except for a few times since the death of Jean Grey. So it's kind of funny, but yeah, they can get along without him just fine. And so she continues, is your life so hollow, your sense of self-worth so fragile that you believe that you're nothing without them? What about me? What about us? You committed to my commitment to you supersedes everything. Are you telling me the same doesn't hold true in reverse? And he stands, she sits, and it's a nice break. It's the same scene but broken up. This is just beautiful. Very well done. And Storm comes and says, excuse me. And she says, but a decision must be made. One of us must lead. The best way to choose, I feel, is a duel. You and I, Cyclops, alone in the danger room. Unless, of course, you would rather step aside. And he walks down and he says no. And she holds the baby. I love this as well. Rick Leonardi is a very good Honestly, Paul Smith should have stayed instead of John Romita Jr. However, since uh, Paul Smith ended up leaving, I think Rick Leonardi could have stayed at least till Silvestri started. It would have been really cool if Leonardi would have actually taken over. Although he will do quite a few fill-in issues, it would have been nice. I do like Rick Leonardi quite a bit. If you're a fan of his, he did Spider-Man 2099 with Peter David. He did about 40 some issues of that run consecutively. I don't think he took an issue off. He did about 12 issues of Cloak and Dagger, and a bunch of fill-in stuff for Uncanny X-Men. So anyway, so you can see here Storm is gonna go. Maddie just holds the baby here. So in the danger room, Magneto is practicing with the New Mutants. Cyclops comes in up here and says, "Excuse me, Cypher, would you and the others mind terminating your session? Storm and I need the room." Why don't they just wait? Anyway, And so, Warlock says query, and Sunspot says, "Who knows? Who knows, Warlock, and who cares? The X-Men are the senior team. They can pull rank and hog the facilities whenever they like." And Magneto says, "Cyclops would not do so, Sunspot, without a good reason." And so here's Storm already waiting, and she says, "Cypher, can you program us an appropriate environment, please?" And he says, "Sure, Ododo." And Cyclops says, "A single false storm, winner take all. I'll keep my optic blast on ultra low power." And she says, "As you wish." And Oleana says, "A duel." And Colossus says, "Da, Cyclops versus Storm." Kitty says, "This is crazy." And Wolverine says, "It had to happen. Had to happen. My money's on the lady." And he takers, and Magneto watches as well. And so they load a program, and it's running now. And so look at this. Just so cool. Nice use. And so, good Lord, I know this is the danger room, that this setting is a mix of illusion and reality, three-dimensional holograms and physical props, but it seems so lifelike. There's sight, sound, even smells. The deception is perfect. And Storm says, "Splendid, Douglas. Cyclops' optic blasts are his advantage. At his advantage, this environment you created is mine. We are evenly matched." And so Cyclops says, "I'll make this short and sweet, Storm." And she says, "You are certainly welcome to try, my friend." And she takes off. He's like, "She's so fast and as agile as a cat. The way she moves, using every scrap of cover, I can't get a decent shot." So you can see she's waiting for him. "Okay, I'll put myself in her shoes. Try to think like she does. Try to figure out her next move." And so she's walking, and she's underneath, and he slips, and then she grabs his arm here to block the optic blast, and then kind of jumps over him and then starts to run, and then he shoots, but of course he misses her. And Magneto says, "A good ambush, but Cyclops easily escaped." And Wolverine says he shouldn't have been nailed in the first place. And Kitty's like, "No secret who you're rooting for." And Wolverine's like, "Ododo can do the job. Scotty can't. Not anymore. His head may be in it, but not his heart. That's blunting his instincts, throwing off his timing. His mistakes are only little ones, but sooner or later, they will cost him." Actually, Wolverine would be correct here. So Cyclops is thinking here, "Why doesn't Maddenly understand? I have a duty, but to her, but to her too, suppose, but to her, comma, I don't know. I think the comma throws me. Anyway, she's right. Am I so afraid? The professor was always more my father than my real father. Shouldn't a son naturally want to take his father's place? And so You can see it crumble from up, so he shoots up, and he says, I was lucky. I've got to stop daydreaming, or I'm in big trouble here. And so Storm is behind him. Why can't I figure Storm out? Where is she? What is she going to do? And so in the attic, the reservations are made, baby. This time tomorrow we'll be on our way home. I want Scott to lose, so he'll be coming with us. Except losing will break his heart. Oh, why can't it be because he wants to instead of because he has no other choice? But none of this has any meaning to you, does it, sweet pea? So long as you're fed and warmed and loved, you're happy. We should all be so lucky. And then ba-boom, and she hears, the sky was perfectly clear a minute ago. Where'd this storm come from? So Cyclops is like, she's right behind me, and he goes, he missed. And then she jumps and grabs his visor, and she's got it. And of course he has to keep his eyes closed. And so Storm says, you are effectively helpless, Cyclops. You dare not unleash your eye beams without risking killing everyone around you. Our duel is over. The best X-Men won, Storm. Congratulations and good luck. And he's like, I don't believe it. I'm dreaming. This isn't happening. I lost. I don't like it, but I'll have to learn how to live with it. There's no more place for me here. I wonder, after all I've said and done, if there's any now with Madeline. So this effectively removes Cyclops, where he will return in X Factor. So, all right, now we've got an epilogue here. And so Rachel is at her grandparents' house, the parents of Jean Grey, and she's going to try to fix that hollow crystal. And she adds a little bit of herself in there. So, and from the moon, the Watcher feels it, and he says, it begins. And so, To Slay the Beyonder is next, as she walks out, and you can see she's with Jean Grey and kisses her grandparents. So, X-Men 201 by Chris Claremont and Rick Leonardi, with Whilce Portacio as the inker. I hope you like this. I always enjoyed this story when it first came out. I just think this story is really badass, and I think Storm just shows how freaking cool she is and why she leads the X-Men. So, like and subscribe. I do thank you for listening. Goodbye.